Welcome, friends. I'm Luxendemark, and today we'll finally finish our overview of the ships you can fly in Vendetta Online. If you haven't seen parts 1 or 2 of this video series, I'll have links on screen and in the video description below. For today's final entry into this 3-part series, coverage includes the nation-specific ships, the Axia Guardian Wraith, and the 2 capital vessels that you can manufacture. Starting with the Atani, you'll have access to one of the best fighter vessels in the game, known as the Valkyrie. This ship has a port setup similar to the Marauder, 3 small ports, while being more agile and having a slimmer profile, especially for the top tier version. While you merely must be an Atani to have a high licenses to pilot most Valkyries, there is an additional step required to fly the Valkyrie X1, which is an upgrade to the already impressive fighter. Should you wish to fly it, look for the Atani Test Pilot mission in your mission log. Next is the Serco vessel known as the Prometheus. This ship is built like a tank, with a Revenant size and port setup. Consider this like a fat ballerina in a furball. Unlike the Atani's X1, the Prometheus does not have any limited access ships. All can be obtained through license grinding alone. This ship will prove difficult to master for fledgling Serco pilots, but in the right hands, the Prometheus lives up to its name and can wreak havoc on your enemies. For the UIT, the vessel of selection is the Raptor UDV. Unlike the standard Raptors, which behave like a large-framed vulture, the UDV is a fairly heavy ship with 2 large ports. Also notable is the UDV's collection of various scanner equipment built into the ship itself. The UDV is fairly difficult to handle, and also comes with the added restriction UIT pilots must be above -600 standing with both Atani and Serco nations. -600 being the limit between hated and disliked. Because of this, coupled with a general sentiment that the ship is less useful than many others, the UDV is fairly rare to be sighted. The last nation-specific ship is the Axia Guardian Wraith, but this one has been saved to last only on a technicality. The Wraith model of ships was actually replaced in the past by the Revenant you see today. The Axia Guardian variant has simply kept the old model, supposedly because the community was so enamored with the old design. The Guardian Wraith is a step between the existing Revenants and the Prometheus in utility, but the old model does give it a large hitbox, and you rarely see people flying Wraiths these days. They're often passed up for more local options. All that remains are capital vessels. Since I'm sure new pilots are going to ask, I'll briefly explain the process of obtaining capital ships, but there will be a dedicated video later in the year that goes through the details. For the basics, however, you will need to have Combat 5, Trade License 9, and Mining License 4 in order to build a capital vessel. More specifically, you will need to acquire Combat 5 in order to see the manufacturing missions related to capital vessel components, and you'll need Trade 9 and Mining 4 for the only ship capable of hauling some of the parts you make, that ship being the TPG variant of the Behemoth called the XC, which we mentioned in the previous video. Once you have fulfilled these conditions, you can spend the long and arduous months involved in the manufacturing process to obtain one of 2 vessels. The first of these capital vessels is called the Goliath. This is the smaller and lighter of the 2 manufacturable capital ships. It requires less components in trade for having a weaker battery, hull, and cargo space. The other manufacturable capital vessel would be the Trident. This is effectively the larger, better brother to the Goliath, able to provide more power, carry more cargo, and handle more damage. It loses out on the Goliath's agility, but as current capital vessels are intended to be transport barges more than anything else, the trade-off is well worth the increased cost to manufacture. As mentioned, capital vessels in VO are intended as transport ships, even though you can find pilots using them for a multitude of other roles. In truth, capital ships are an evolving concept in Vendetta Online and were added before their implementation was ready, so says the developers of the game. So the vessels we may see in the future, including these two existing ones, may function differently from today. With every pilotable ship in Vendetta Online covered, I have some important closing notes. Hopefully you realize how diverse Vendetta Online's offerings are, now that you've seen every pilotable ship, and have a better idea when and where the different ships would be best used. Like I've mentioned, just because you've unlocked a bigger ship doesn't mean it's better. In PvP, the second-by-second decisions you make in maneuvering your ship will matter more than what your ship itself is. It would be best to grow familiar with how each vessel handles and keep in mind their intended use case. If you have enjoyed this series, I ask that you show your support with a like and comment, which really helps boost the video's visibility to the YouTube's algorithm. I also recommend you subscribe, there's plenty more content like this. Thank you for watching, I'll see you in the universe.